Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Great to see you all again, especially those of you who I consider my YouTube friends. If you want to know how to become a YouTube friend of mine, it's really simple. All you have to do is like this video, write a nice comment below, maybe comment on some aspect of the video, or maybe tell me something that I don't know, which I always enjoy, and share this with another friend. That would also be great, and subscribe. And that's it. You're a YouTube friend of mine. Just that easy. Friends for life. So there you go. Until I upset you in another video, of course, which I often do. So I do apologize in advance for that. So today we're going to be doing bar tape. I was actually wrapping the handle on my badminton racket because my wife has decided that she wants to take up badminton, and I'm going to be involved in that as part of her decision. And I haven't played badminton, I think, since I was a teenager. So this racket had been lying around for quite some time, and the handle had obviously disintegrated, or the tape at least had disintegrated. So I've just rewrapped it with some chinelli tape. And while I was doing that, I thought, you know what? You guys might like to know a few tips and tricks on how to do your bar tape the wrong way. What do I mean by the wrong way? So I, according to conventional wisdom, do my bar tape wrong. And I actually do it wrong for the majority of my customers. Now, I will do bar tape any way you want me to as a bike shop, but the way I prefer to do it is I start my bar tape at the top and I finish at the bottom. Conventional wisdom says you should start at the bottom and finish at the top. That is the way that traditionally bars have been wrapped for many, many years, probably since the 1920s or maybe even earlier. And so if you ask like a Pro Tour mechanic, hoity-toity Pro Tour mechanic, they will tell you that I'm doing it wrong. Now, I know I'm doing it wrong, but there are actually quite a few advantages to doing it the wrong way. I don't see it as wrong, I just see it as not conventional and an alternative method. So today we're going to look at this bar tape technique. I'm going to share with you a few tips and tricks on how to do it and how to do your bar tape well. And yeah, hopefully it's going to be useful to you. Let's go take a look at the bike and I shall explain everything. Well, maybe not everything, but everything to do with this bar tape. Let's go. If you want to follow my tutorial today on how to do your bar tape, you will need a screwdriver, a flat-bladed one. This is the one I use. A sharp pair of scissors. I generally have one pair of scissors that I just use for doing bar tape in the shop, but you can use any pair of scissors you have lying around at home as long as they're nice and sharp. And your bar tape of choice. Now, the bar tape I will be using today is exactly the same bar tape that's on the handlebars, just a fresher version. This Fizik Vento Solo Cush Tacky in 2.7 millimeters. It is a nice, squashy, bouncy bar tape with excellent all-weather grip. And I love this fluorescent yellow color. So, if ginger beer bubbles burn your tongue, you should probably stay away from bright colors like this. But if you are adventurous like me, I do recommend a nice bright color. Fluoro is always good. However, as you can see, this bar tape does wear. If you do go for this stuff, be aware that it's not as hard wearing as some of your other bar tapes. If you want a really hard wearing bar tape, I would seriously recommend either the Fizik Soft Touch bar tape or the Fizik Classic Touch. The Soft Touch feels a bit like felt, but it's really, really hard wearing. It is a little porous, however, so if you get it wet, it does tend to soak the water. Their Classic Touch basically feels like leather, and it is my favorite Fizik bar tape. And the Classic Touch is really, really tough and generally lasts absolutely forever. Oh yeah, you want to clamp your bike in a bike stand or some kind of work stand so that the handlebar is just below your chest. Here, sort of in your sternum area. That's where I like to have my bar. It means it's a nice height for me to wrap the bar and get some tension on the tape and to manipulate the bike around. I find that's about the perfect height, just sort of sternum height. Now, you will notice that my bike is clamped in the stand on the top tube. If you have a carbon bike or a lightweight aluminium bike, I wouldn't recommend you do that. Obviously, go for the seat post is the sensible thing to do. But for me, this is 6.4 forged titanium, cold forged titanium or whatever it's called. And I ain't going to damage that. If you start at the bottom of the handlebar and you start wrapping the tape and you wrap it all the way to the top, different brands of tape have different lengths to them, believe it or not. There's no standard bar tape length, and there's also no standard bar width. So you could have a very narrow bar, you could have a very wide bar. You have no idea where your tape is going to finish. And if you look at this tape here, you can see there's actually a mark here and here where this bar tape is supposed to start and stop for a physique bar, okay? And so to aim to hit that mark, starting at the bottom, you've basically got to guess how much length of tape you have and how tight you can wind it in order to get to that point. You can either overshoot that point, which is not so bad, it means you just got to cut off the excess, or you can undershoot it and not have enough tape to finish, and then have to unwind the tape again and redo it wider so that you can reach that point. If you start at the top in exactly the spot where you want the tape to finish, then all you have to do is just wrap to the bottom and then chop off the excess. There's a lot less calculation involved. I find it's a lot easier to get a nice fit to the bar starting at the top. Okay, same for any patterns in the bar. I find it a lot easier to calculate how the pattern's going to look starting from the top, because this is the most important part. If you make a mistake here while you're wrapping top down, it's okay. You only have a few winds to undo in order to adjust it to make it look nice. If you make a mistake down here and you get to the top and your pattern on your tape looks crappy, then you're stuffed. You have to unwind the whole thing and start again, right? And this is the part of the tape that most people are going to spend the most time looking at, because you're going to look at this part more than you're going to look at this bit down here. So when you're sitting on the bike, you can't really see this bit down here. It's covered by your arms and it's covered by the natural curve of the bar. This is the section that's going to get most eyes. So this is the section you want to look the best. Am I making sense so far? Hopefully I am. Another reason to do it this way is, if you notice, let's just zoom in here for a second. This is where the tape finishes or starts, whichever way you want to look at it, and it's totally clean. There's nothing here. So the traditional way of doing bar tape is either with electrical tape. So what you would do is you would finish here, you'd cut off the tape, and then you'd wrap electrical tape around this edge. And then sometimes in the box with your bar tape, you'll get a finishing tape strip like this. Now, if you are doing it the way with the finishing strip, I would always recommend you do some electrical tape turns first, just to keep the bar in place or the tape in place on the bar, and then you wrap it with your finishing tape. Now, me personally, this one especially, these physique tapes are really annoying, because as you can see, it only has 2 logos on it. And if you think, oh, I'll put this logo here, and then you start wrapping this thing around, look where your logo ends up. It ends up in completely the wrong position. So it's really quite tricky to calculate how this is going to look. And usually if you're at home and you're doing your bar tape at home, you only get one chance at this. And once you remove the backing from these things and stick them to something, they generally don't like to be pulled off again. They've either got really strong adhesive on it that will rip the bar tape off when you pull it off to correct it, or the adhesive won't be that strong and it will refuse to stick after you try and do it the second time, which is not great. The other thing I find, that if you use electrical tape on your bar, this stuff has got a nasty sticky residue to it that leaks out. Like after you've wrapped it, if it's hot weather, the electrical tape tends to move around and slide about. As the glue gets warm, it becomes more fluid and less viscous. And you end up with these sticky patches all over the edge of your bar. And what I find is that stickiness attracts dirt. So a few days later, you'll notice you've got little grains of sand or little bits of dirt or mud stuck to the glue residue that was left behind by the electrical tape. If you've ever picked up electrical tape, you can feel it sticky on the edges. That's the same stickiness that will seep out onto your bar. Same with the finishing tape. So what will happen is 2 things. One is you'll get a load of dirt stuck around here. And the next thing is, eventually, that electrical tape will start to peel off. I found in the UK when I was riding in all weathers, eventually it would start to peel, and then my bar tape would start coming unwound. And also when you come to remove your bar tape, you have to go through the annoying process of finding the beginning of the electrical tape and picking away at it and then unwinding the electrical tape before you can even start to unwind the bar. If you get something like a crafting knife or colloquially termed Stanley knife, and you try and cut the tape off like this, which sometimes you have to do when you can't find the end of the electrical tape, you run the risk of scoring your nice carbon bar, cutting into your cables, cutting your own thumb, which I have done before, and all sorts of other nasty things because you're having to chop away at it. So again, having the electrical tape there is a real nuisance because when you wrap from the top down, it holds itself in position and it can never come undone. It's physically impossible for this tape to unwind itself. Whereas again, if you do it with electrical tape and the electrical tape comes loose, it will unwind itself. I have never had a bar unwind itself. And part of that is because we finish down here at the bottom, and this is where we insert our bar end plug. And if you use Fizik bar tape, let me just find a Fizik bar end plug. Here we are. These are very simple. They're just plastic, extremely lightweight. I think these weigh about 4 grams. And they're very tight. You stuff them in there under the bar, and these do not come out easily, and that holds your bar tape in place. And the only time this would ever come out is if maybe you crashed and you ripped the bar plug out, and then it would come unwound. But you would simply just have to find the plug and wind it and then stick it back in position again. Now we're about to undo this tape, but imagine in a bike mechanic scenario or a home mechanic scenario, you want to change your shifters, okay? So you want to keep the cables in position because you like the position of the cables. There's nothing wrong with that. But for some reason, maybe you've got a broken shifter or you're upgrading your shifters, you want to remove your shifter. If you do it from bottom to top, right, your bar tape, that means in order to remove this shifter, you have to unwind the tape all the way down to the bottom in order to slide this shifter off, right? Because you finished here. But in my way of doing it, you don't have to do that. You only have to unravel the tape up to this point here, because then you can just undo the bolt and you can just slide the shifter off and half the bar tape remains on the bike. So you can actually more easily do servicing and sort of shifter replacements and shifter work without having to remove all the bar tape. And then when you slide the shifter back on after you've done the job, if the bar tape's still in good condition, all you have to do is rewrap half the bar. Whereas the other way around, if you start at the bottom, finish at the top, you have to unwind the entire tape and you have to wind the entire tape back after you've finished your job. So that is why me personally as a mechanic, I much prefer this system. The main criticism or the main reason that I hear cited for why you shouldn't do your bar tape from top down is that people say that because the wrapping goes in this direction, okay, so the edges of the wrap are exposed on this side rather than the opposite side they would be if you'd started at the bottom, that you will rub the bar tape up into like little balls, basically. That is not the case, okay? What I tend to find, like if you look at my tape right now, you will notice that the surface is damaged, but the actual edges where the bar tape finishes are not damaged. These edges are not rolled up. When I say rolled up, I mean like this, right? You sometimes see this on people's handlebars. All the edges look like that, right? Okay, rolled up. You can see that I often rest my hands here and that I often rest my hands here. This is obviously where I like to rest my hands the most. And you can see the edges are not rolled. So this tape here is on my oldest bike. I have obviously changed the tape on my oldest bike, but this tape has been on here for a really long time now. So long, in fact, that you can see the tape has worn smooth over time. This is the old Fizik Classic Touch design. You can also see that I started with the stitches. There's 2 stitches on the Fizik Classic Touch, and those are the 2 stitches that I started with at the top of the bar when I began my coil. Anyway, so you can see that the tape has been worn smooth over time. It's going black because it's so old. This is what it should look like down here where I hardly use the bar. Look, you can see the original design, but on top, completely worn smooth, and the surface is starting to deteriorate. But you notice no rolled edges. So this is very old tape that's been used for a really long time, good quality tape, worn completely smooth with age, and it's not rolling at all. This is the new Fizik Classic Touch. This is on a customer's bike. This bike is used. Look, the cassette is dirty, as you can see. So, but again, several rides on this bike after I fitted this tape, and you can see the edges of the tape are not rolling. This is the new design of the Fizik Classic Touch. So this is going to be on here for a very, very long time. If you do experience the edges rolling on your tape, it has more to do with the way you ride and the way you rest your hands or the way you rub your hands on your bike. And I have customers who have bar tape or have had bar tape wrapped in both directions, and no matter which direction I wrap their tape, they roll the edges. They'll roll the edges in this way or they'll roll the edges in that way. It's because of how they ride and because of how they hold the bar. When I hold the bar, I hold the bar because my fit on the bike is good. People who have a bad fit, for example, on the bike, they'll tend to like rub against their bar tape like this, and they'll basically just roll the edges of the tape. Also, if you do your tape nice and tight, the edges don't roll. Now we're going to see how I actually wrap it. So grab your screwdriver, and we're going to pull the end caps out. This is all I'm using this screwdriver for, just to pry the end caps out. Once I've got the blade behind, you can pull them out fairly easily. But that's it. That's how you undo the tape. It's that simple. So I'll pop that down there. I'll just do the other one off the opposite side. There we go. And that's it. No electrical tape, no finishing tape. I can now just start unwrapping my tape. I can easily get to the hoods. Now you notice that I don't do any fancy figure of 8 or anything with my bar tape. I just use that little extra piece that you often get inside the bar tape box to conceal the little metal ring, the little metal clasp here. I try to keep things simple. Yeah, keep it simple, stupid, is my mantra for bar tape. I just want to get the bar tape on and go for a ride. Now you notice that I have a couple of pieces of electrical tape here holding on my cables. There's my old tape all wrapped up, ready for the bin. So let me just remove the tape from the other side. The Fizik bar tape is good because the adhesive strip that they use is not too sticky. Some of the cheaper bar tapes out there have a really strong adhesive strip, and you end up with loads of residue left all over your bars, which is a great pain to pick off, especially if it stinks bad. It's an unpleasant job. So I do like the Fizik tape because it is easy to remove. If you do get some finishing tape with your bar tape, you can actually use it to hold your cables in place. Instead of using this electrical tape that I have here, you can just use the finishing tape that you get in the box. If you don't have any electrical tape on you when you're building your bike, just use the finishing tape of your bar tape because you don't need it for your bar tape. So grab your bar tape. Now your bar tape usually has a backing on it, which is this blue stuff in this particular case. What I like to do, you'll notice that the end of the bar tape that's most coiled up, so the very end, if you like, that should be the end of the bar tape if you can, because you'll notice that this end is much more crinkled and screwed up than the other side, which is the outer edge of the roll. So the outer edge of the roll looks much fresher and nicer, and that's the side you really want to start with. Now, if you have a logo on the tape, this one we do have a logo, little Fizik, you can try and start with that logo, okay, at the top. And the way it works is, if you've got logos on your tape, what you'll find is they're only on one side of the tape, which means you have to reverse wrap one side of the bar in order to get both logos in exactly the same position. So one side you will have to wrap forward like this, and the other side you will have to wrap the opposite direction. Okay, so start with this thing facing you or start with this thing facing away from you. Does that make sense? In order to get both physique logos in exactly the same place, you'll work it out when you see your tape, whatever kind of pattern you have on your tape. Also, with all bar tape that has patterns, one side of the pattern will be clearer than the other. Usually, if you've got a pattern running down, say, kind of the middle of your tape, it's not actually running down the middle. It'll be running down one side more than the other. And that is because they're expecting you to overlap the tape slightly, right? Like this. So as you overlap the tape, in order to prevent you from overlapping the pattern will be off center slightly. So you need to take note of which side the pattern is more dominant to. Okay, a big mistake I see other bike shops making and other people making is that when they wrap their tape, they cover half the pattern because they wrap in the wrong direction. Okay, so goodness me, I had no idea that bar tape was such a complicated subject, but it actually is. Oh, and if you're using a nice color like this, or a white bar tape, put something on the floor if your floor's not clean. So like a towel or some paper or something like that. You'll need something on the floor to prevent your tape from getting dirty. Also, it's a good idea to tape your bike when your bike is clean, because any brake dust or oil or anything that's on your bike, as your tape slaps against the bike, it might end up leaving a mark on your tape. So if you're using black tape, it doesn't matter. But if you're using a nice color like this, you want to try and avoid those kind of smudges. Right, let's get the backing off. This is actually the hardest part of bar taping, getting the backing off. I absolutely suck at getting the backing off bar tape. It's something I am not good at. So there we go, I got it. There we are. So now, again, depending on how sticky the bar tape is at the back here, you want to be careful about how much of the backing you remove. With this physique stuff, I can remove as much of it as I want. It doesn't matter because this sticky glue is not that sticky. It just kind of holds the bar tape nicely in place. If you have something like Chinelli bar tape, the glue is really strong. You want to not remove all the backing, only remove as much backing as you need, because if the glue sticks against the tape, you will not get it off. You'll rip your tape before you get it off. Generally, you want to cover this mark here, but I actually start it just after the mark. There's the physique logo. That is where I want to begin. So I wrap the tail underneath, and then I'm going to pull. Now, there are some bar tapes on the market. I believe Lizard Skin actually says in the instructions, do not pull this tape. You can't pull it. That is why I don't like the brand Lizard Skin, or one of the reasons I don't like the brand Lizard Skin. In order to have a good taping of your bar, you need a tape you can pull on. If you can't pull on the tape and get it nice and tight, it's not a good bar tape brand in my opinion. So I avoid Lizard Skin because it actually clearly says in their instructions, don't pull on the tape. The physique stuff you can pull on. So curl your tail under and give it a tug so it's nice and firm against the bar. And then do one loop underneath. And as you come over the other side, you want to just cross the top or just above your logo. That's how I do it. So I go over the top and I just get the edge of the tape above the logo where I started. And that is the beginning of my turn. So the logo is nice and clear. You'll see the next logo has come round to the side already. And that one's a little bit thicker than the rest, and that's going to hold everything in place. And then after that, you can go a bit wider if you want. I'm going to make this section fairly thick because it's nice and bouncy. But always put plenty of tension on the tape. See, notice I'm holding the tape in position with my 2 fingers from the back as I flip it over the top. I'm making sure that I keep the pressure on that tape at all times. Do not let up the pressure. Keep it under tension the whole time as you wrap. There we go. That is looking super nice. There we go. Tension on again. Do not let the bar tape go. Keep the tension, keep the pressure on it. Okay, now as we start to come round the edge, sometimes you will, let's get focused here. There, you'll get these little loops, right? Where as you start to turn, the tape is sagging a little bit. Now you can eliminate that by, again, giving it a bit more of a pull. And then that little lump there should fold under really nicely. If you don't use enough pressure, you can see the tape is already disintegrating where it touched the glue actually. This is old tape, so it's not particularly sturdy. If you don't put enough pressure on it, you'll get a lump there. Whereas doing it this way, you don't get any lump, yeah? If you look underneath somebody's bar and you can see lots of creases in the bar tape, that's because they haven't pulled tight enough when they were doing it. So pull nice and tight and you eliminate those lumps. Okay, and we go around the edge. It's really not as complicated as it looks. I remember the first time I did my own bar tape, I was quite worried about it, but after you've done it once or twice, you realize actually it's no big deal. What I would recommend is buy cheaper bar tape the first time you start experimenting, and that way if you do mess it up, it's not such a huge calamity. There you go. Or practice with your old bar tape first. So when you remove the old bar tape off your bar, just like practice with the old pieces. Maybe that would be a good way to do it. And then you don't have to worry about damaging it. And then once you've had a good practice, you can fully remove that bar tape and start putting your fresh stuff on. So as I'm going, I'm removing more backing as I go, and I'm never letting go of the bar tape. I always have one hand or one set of fingers pinning it down. Now, this is where it gets tricky because we're coming up to the shifter. So there we are. Now, we have arrived at the shifter. So what we need to do now, you can see, look, the glue is pulling off the surface of the bar tape. That's how weak the surface is on this particular tape. It's not good stuff for durability, but I've got loads of it lying around, so I'm not too worried. Okay, now what we need to do is put this little piece behind the shifter. So this is, it usually comes in your bar tape box. You'll get an extra little bit, and that is to cover this metal ring here at the back. What I tend to do is I measure it to the two sides of that metal ring, roughly. I say, yeah, that's where it's going to end. And then I cut it there, put a little nick in it. All right. And if you want to be really sort of anally retentive, you can try and make sure that the logo on this thing is at the bottom. So when you wrap it around, if anybody looks underneath, they'll see that the logo is in the right orientation. In this situation, I've actually cut through the logo, but that doesn't matter. There we are. So chop off the excess you don't need. Then we have another annoying backing removal to do, which is always difficult. Got it. I got it. I got it. There we are. Good riddance. Get out of here. So, like I say, try and make sure that the logo that you have is at the bottom. Wrap that around there. With the Shimano shifters, there's actually a nice little gap behind the shifter you can tuck this into, but with the SRAM ones, there isn't a gap, so you just have to hold it there for a second. Then go around over the top. Again, keep it nice and tight. And by wrapping it underneath the bottom, you will you'll hold that in place. And then we can go straight under the bar. I shall show you what I've done here because this is a little bit tricky. So I've gone over the top, underneath, and now I'm going straight forward. If you want a little bit more padding here, you can go over twice. So I can pull and I can go up and over, and you could do another overlap like that if that's what you want to do. So we'll do that for now, and then go back over the top. Again, plenty of tension on it. Always remember, loads of tension on the bar. Tape, stop it from moving. And then around the front. Tuck it just under the shifter here. I like to have a little bit of a lip there, look, that I push in. So it's tucked under the shifter. Nice and tight again. As tight as you can get it basically without tearing the tape. I remember Part Tools did a video on doing bar tape, and they actually said take a section of bar tape and pull it until it snaps so that you know how much tension you can get on your tape. So they really believe in a lot of tension. So I'm continuing down the handle. It's really up to you where you or how tight you make your pattern. There's no real rule of thumb. It depends how thick you want your tape and how you want the tape to look. But if you want a rule that you can follow, you see here you've got the sticky section in the middle and then the two edges here and here. You can aim to cross the sticky section just on that lip of the previous twist of tape, right? So like this. So the edge of this sticky section will touch the edge of the tape here, and then this will be your overlap, like that. And then as you come round again, so we come round the bottom, nice and tight. And again, same again, sticky section is just going to cut across that top there. Remember, maintain that tightness, keep going. We're nearly at the bottom. There we go. Right, we have reached the bottom. Now, what you need now is your end plug. Okay, this is the one I'm going to use. This is the one I pre-cut earlier. And your scissors. You want to completely cover the bar, all right, and have a little bit of an overhang all the way around. So I'm going to do that first. Get this bit as tight as you can make it, all right? You can see how tight that is now. And come around until you reach the point where you're about to overlap. So that's your overlapping point there, all right? So you're going to overlap there, and then you can back it off. And this is where you're going to make your cut. So where you're just slightly over your overlap, you want to make your cut. And for me, I tend to cut the tape. How do I describe this? So you're going to cut it at an angle. And the side at which the cut section is going to face is towards the front of the bike. That's the way I remember it. So I bring my scissors across here and I just cut right across about 45 degrees. And the cut section is facing towards the front of the bike. Okay? Nice and tight, pull it in, overlap it, and then we stuff that overlap section in the hole. Like that. Okay. Fold all the edges in. Then get your bar end plug. Make sure that your logo is the right way round and it is level. That's always important. Nothing worse than seeing somebody with a logo that isn't straight. And then pop that in there like that. Make sure it's all tucked in. There you are. Okay, so then when that's all done, you can fold back down your hood. And there is your bar tape. Notice, nice and clean edge, no electrical tape needed. And then coming down the bar. So here we go. Here's the test of good bar taping. If we look underneath, you'll see there's very little. There's a tiny little crease here, just where we began. But there's no creases anywhere else. There's no lumps or bumps or creases. This section gets a little bit narrower here as it starts to turn, but that's fine. If you do a really smart job of it, you'll have a very even curve to it. And that is generally how most of my customers request it to be done. Nice and clean, no electrical tape. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. I shall now get on with doing the other side. If I were to add both sides in this video, the video would be like an hour long, and I'm sure you don't want to watch an hour of me doing bar tape. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Any questions, stick them below, and hopefully I covered everything. I think I did cover everything. As always, folks, whatever bike you're riding, whatever bar tape you're using, do stay safe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye.